Guys, this is the video for Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 4. This scene is a long one, unfortunately, and it's not the most action-filled. There is a few comedic elements, but that's about it. So I'll try and give you less work for this one. So the first thing, the learning objectives, all you're going to do is you're going to analyse devices and word choice. So level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1, effect to the reader, connotations, denotations, what it makes the reader think of. Level 2, how that develops the plot, character, the setting, tone. And level 3, make connections to the outside. You're also going to look at a new literary device, so you should be able to define it and come up with examples and definitions, and it's called malapropism. And it's basically using words incorrectly for a comedic effect. So I'll give you some examples of that as we go through the scene. Before we begin though, we need to look at a fellow called Petrarch, who was an Italian Renaissance poet. He lived between these dates, 1304 to 1374, and he's regarded as one of the greatest scholars of his age. He's obsessed, or he was obsessed, with this woman called Laura, right? The love was unrequited, she didn't love him back. She's said to be married with children, and he wrote over 300 sonnets to her. So obsessed doesn't even begin to describe it. The Canzoniere, divided into the Rime Vita Laura, which is 263 poems, and the Rime Immorte Laura, which is 103 poems. So all in all, that's 366 poems for this woman. So yeah, he's pretty obsessed. And he was really, really popular in Elizabethan England. It actually became cliche, using lots of similes, burning like fire, freezing like ice. And like the audience would know who he was. Shakespeare was a fan, and Petrarch was an inspiration to Shakespeare. So when he's referenced and alluded to in Act 2, Scene 4, the audience would know who he is, and they would find these cliches maybe kind of amusing. So we start the scene, Act 2, Scene 4. It's in a street at noon. Remember the night before they were at the party, the morning Romeo's gone to see the friar, and now at noon it's Benvolio and Mercutio, and they start off saying, "Where the devil should this Romeo be? Came he not home tonight?" So where's Romeo? Did he not go home? Benvolio says, "Not to his father's. I spoke with his man." So he didn't go to his dad's, he didn't go to Lord Montague's house. I've spoken to the manservant, and he's confirmed that Romeo did not go home. "Ah, that same pale-hearted wench, that Rosaline, torments him so, that he will sure run mad." So that cold-hearted woman, that pale, hard-hearted wench, really not nice language. Mercutio, very sexist character. Talking about Rosaline, she will make him crazy. And then Benvolio says, "Tybalt, the kinsman of old Capulet, have sent a letter to his father's house." So if you think back to Act 2, Scene 2, or yes, the party, we've got, Act 1, Scene 5, I do apologise. Act 1, Scene 5, you got the party, and remember Tybalt was so angry that Romeo attended this party, and he said, "I'm not going to forget this. I'm going to get my revenge. I might not do it tonight, but I'm going to get my revenge." So he sent a letter to Lord Montague's house. This is a challenge on my life. So basically asking to fight for the death. He says, "Romeo will answer it." So remember, they've sent a letter. Is what the letter challenging him to fight to the death. Yeah, Romeo will answer it. He will accept it. He will answer the letter by accepting the duel, accepting the fight. Mercutio does a bit of wordplay here. Any man that can write may answer a letter. So Benvolio means he'll answer it by answering the call to fight. Mercutio saying, well, anyone can answer a letter if they can write. So there's a bit of a joke there. "Nay, he will answer the letter's master, how he dares being dead." So he will accept this. He will accept this fight, basically. Mercutio, "Alas, poor Romeo, he is already dead." I like this foreshadowing because it really establishes the theme of fate. He's already dead. You know, this is the path that is happening. We can't change it. Obviously, Mercutio doesn't know this at this point, but this foreshadowing really, really does develop the theme of fate. He's stabbed with a white wench's black eye, shot through the ear with a love song, the very pin of his heart cleft with the blind boy's butt shaft. And he is a man to encounter Tybalt. So basically, Romeo is weak. He's already dead. He's been stabbed with a woman's eye. So these looks she's giving him have killed him. He's shot through the ear with a love song, and Cupid's arrow has broken his heart. And he's enough to fight Tybalt. But Valiant was like, why? What is Tybalt? Who's Tybalt? Why is he someone to be scared of? Mercutio says, more than the Prince of Cats, I can tell you. Now, if you remember back to the beginning, at One Scene One, we talked about how Tybalt was a character from Reynard the Fox, the old Dutch folktale, and he is the Prince of Cats. So the audience, through allusion, the audience already know that he's this wily, aggressive character. Oh, he's the courageous captain of compliments. There's nice alliteration. There's loads of alliteration in the scene. He's the courageous captain of compliments. He's really, really good at fencing. Fencing is obviously sword fighting to anyone who doesn't know. So he's a really, really good sword fighter. He fights as you sing prick song, keeps in time, distance, and proportion. He rests his minim rests, 1, 2, and the third in your bosom. So basically, he is an exceptional fighter. He's courageous and he fights like a dance. He's, he rests. He rests his minim rest, 1, 2, and the third in your bosom. So it's like 1, 2, stab, 1, 2, stab in your heart. The very butcher of a silk button. A duelist, a gentleman of the very first house of the first and second course. So this is a student of the best school, a student of the best for sword fighting school. Butcher of a silk button, so he will stab the buttons on silk shirts. Basically, he'll pierce your skin. He's a duelist. And then he says, the immortal Posado, the Punto Reverso, the Hell. So these are just the names of the moves. The Posado is the forward thrust, the Punto Reverso is the backhand, the Haze, the hit. So these are the fancy names for the moves. Ben Valley was like, the what? Mercutio says, the pox of such antique lisping, affecting fantasticos, these new tuners of accents. By Jesus, a very good blade, a very tall man, a very good horse. Why is it not this a lamentable thing, grandsire, that we should thus afflicted with these strange flies, these fashion mongers, these pardon me's who stand so much on the new form that they cannot sit on ease of the old bench? Oh, their bones. So this is, I don't really see the point in it, but basically he's talking about people who do and say silly things in order to try and be fashionable. Those who cannot sit on the case of the old bench, they stand so much on the new form, they try so much to keep up with the new fashion trends, and often that's a way of speaking. The pox also made the plague kill, antic, lisping, so silly, Spanish accented, affecting fantasticos. So he's saying that these people who go around speaking, I hate these silly men who take the latest fashionable ways with their silly accents and way of speaking. Isn't it sad that these people speak in such stupid ways just to be fashionable? They copy the latest fashions. They have to do on the new form, and they can't sit on the old bench, and they cry because of that. Their bones hurt. And then Romeo enters. He says, here comes Romeo. Presumably I don't have to put a modern translation for that. Without his roe, like a dried herring, O flesh, how art thou fishified? So roe is kind of like caviar. So you might see them little orange fish eggs. It's like cheap caviar, like a dried herring. So he's a dried fish without any eggs. O flesh, how art thou fishified? Again, it's a kind of a dirty reference there. So he says, is he for the numbers that Petrarch flowed in? Laura to his lady was a kitchen wench. So we've got our allusion to Petrarch here. Laura, compared to Rosaline, is a kitchen wench. So she's just this ugly Laura, who Petrarch thought was the most beautiful woman ever, is a kitchen ugly wench compared to Rosaline. Remember, at this point, Mercutio doesn't know anything about Juliet. Mary, she had a better love to berhyme her. So basically, Laura was lucky enough, though, to have Petrarch love her. He's a better poet than Romeo. Dido a dowdy, Cleopatra a gypsy, Helen a hero, hiding the harlots. So these are all famous women through history. Again, lots of allusion here. We've got like Helena and Cleopatra, Greek, and obviously you guys know who Cleopatra is. These ancient women from history who are considered to be great and beautiful. He's now saying that they're ugly, all in comparison to what Romeo thinks of Rosaline, but not to the purpose. Signor Romeo, bonjour. So remember, it's Italian, so Signor Romeo. Bonjour, French meeting. There's a French salutation or greeting to your French slop, so the trousers you wore. You gave us the counterfeit fairly last night, so you gave us the slip last night. Good morrow to you both. What counterfeit did I give you? So, like, you mugged us off last night. How did I mug you off? The slip, sir, the slip. Can you not conceive? So basically, you tried to run away from us last night. If you give someone the slip, you try and get away from them. This is pardon, good Mercutio. My business was great, and in such case as mine, a man may strain courtesy. So sorry, Mercutio, I had something important to do, and in such a situation like mine, it's okay to forget politeness. Mercutio says, pardon. So that's as much as to say such case as yours constrains a man to bow in the hams. So what he's saying is here, you're saying that your important business was shaking your booty. I'm not going to go into too much detail with a lot of Mercutio's jokes here, because Mercutio is a very dirty, bawdy character, similar to the nurse actually, and he does provide some comedic value there. So he's saying like shaking your booty, and Romeo says meaning to curtsy. So he's doing the wordplay here. He's like, okay, fine, I was doing that, to curtsy. Mercutio says, thou hast most kindly hit it, so now you got it, that's right. A most courteous exposition. So yes, I'm explaining it in the nicest way possible. Mercutio says, nay, I am the very pink of curtsy. I'm the perfect example. I'm the pink flower of curtsy. Romeo says pink for flower. There's a bit of a dirty reference there. Mercutio says, right, why then is my pump well flowered? So again, there's some kind of inappropriate stuff I'm not going to talk about. I'll get through this because it's actually this whole banter they've got going on isn't that funny, and it's kind of pointless, I think, to the scene. Mercutio says, sure wit, follow me this jest now, till thou hast worn out thy pump, that when the single soul of it's worn, the jest may remain after the wearing solely singular. So what he's saying here is the joke is getting tired now. We're wearing it out, we're wearing it thin. Oh, single soul jest, solely singular for the singleness. So there's a little alliteration there, and I think it's to prove that they're being silly. So he's just like, this is all stupid. We're just saying silly nonsense now. Come between us, good Benvolio, and my wits faint. So he's like, come on, mate, get involved with mine and Romeo's really bad banter. I can't do this all day. My intelligence is fading. Romeo says, switch and spurs, or I'll cry a match. He's like, come on, mate, bring it on, or I'll be the winner of this banner. Nay, if our wits run the wild goose chase, I am done, for thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than I am sure I have in my whole 5. Was I with you, therefore the goose? So basically, They're going on a wild goose chase here. Now, if this carries, I am done for you. Have more humour than me. You have more humour than I'm ever going to be able to come close to. You've got more humour than I have in all my five senses. And were you there for the wild goose chase? It's this silly little joke. Romeo says, "Thou was never with me for anything when thou was there for the goose." So yeah, you're never with me. That's just pointless. I will bite thee by the ear for that jest. So I'm going to bite you on the ear for that jest. Nay, good goose, bite not. So he's still just calling them a goose. Thy wit is very bitter sweeting. It is a most sharp sauce. So what he's just saying here is your humour is kind of insulting and it's hard to take now. He says, Romeo says, and is it not then well served into a sweet goose? It's a good sauce to serve a sweet goose like you. So my insults are good for someone like you. Oh, here's a wit of Chevreul that stretches from an inch narrow to an ell broad. So we're wearing this joke pretty thin now. I'll stretch it out for the word broad, which added to the goose proves that far on my goose. All right, so I'll stretch this joke further. Oh, how much more have we got this? All right, not much more. Why is it not better now than groaning for love? Now art thou sociable, now art thou Romeo, now art thou what thou art, by art as well by nature. For this drivelling love is like a great natural that runs lolling up and down like to hide his bauble in the hall. But this one's really hard to say. So this, there's a device in itself there that, it's almost like a tongue twister, which really shows the silliness of the banter, the silliness of Mercutio, and the childish behaviour of Romeo as well. So we really see Romeo, the last couple of scenes, he's been with Juliet and he's using lots of religious imagery. And already, Romeo is going back to acting like a child with Mercutio. Mercutio is saying lots of dirty jokes. They're having this stupid banter that it's not even funny about Goose, and they're all just childish. And he's saying this, why is not this better now than groaning for love? Now art thou most sociable, now art Romeo, now art thou what thou art. So isn't this much better than being upset and depressed in love? You're now fun to be around, Romeo, basically. And it's this bit of a tongue twister. It says, for this drivelling love is like a great natural that runs lolling up and down to hide his bauble in a hall. So there's another dirty joke there. You are now what nature has made you to be, and you're acting the way you should be, running up and down a hill like a little kid. Benvolio says, stop there. Thou desirest me to stop in my tail against the hair. Thou wouldst else have made thy tail large. So basically another dirty joke there. Oh, thou art deceived, I would have made it short, for I was come to the whole depth of my tail, and meant indeed to occupy the argument no longer. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting my words out tonight. You're wrong, I would have made it short, for I had already told my whole story, but I meant to say no more. Yeah. And that's it. Finally, we've got the nurse coming into the scene. And he says, here's goodly gear. So here's a ship. This woman's like a boat, like a big, big ship. A sail. So she's obviously a very large woman who dresses kind of with these loose white clothes. Two, a shirt and a smock. So a man and a woman. Then the nurse comes in, Peter, anon. My fan, Peter. And Mercutio, bit mean, says, good Peter, to hide her face, for her fan's the fairer face. So he's calling her ugly, saying the fan is more beautiful than her. The nurse says, good ye good morrow, gentlemen. And Mercutio says, good ye good evening, fair gentlewoman. In which, sorry, is it good? Is it the afternoon? She says, is it good end? Is it the afternoon? It's not. It's noon. Till 'tis no less, I tell you, for the baldy hand of the dial is now upon the prick of noon. So there's another vulgar joke there, and there's a sundial. So obviously it's gone up, and the shadow is pointing towards noon. out upon you what a man you are. So what kind of disgusting man are you? So even the nurse, who's already this bawdy character, is calling Mercutio out. What kind of disgusting character are you? Romeo says, one gentlewoman that God hath made for himself to mar. That God's made Mercutio in order to just hurt himself. He's such an idiot. By my troth, it is well said for himself to mar, quoth he. So basically, she's repeating it. That seems true. He is for himself to injure. Gentlemen, can any of you tell me where I may find the young Romeo? I can tell you, but young Romeo will be older when you have found him than he was when you sought him. I am the youngest of that name, for fault of a worse. So Romeo's saying, young Romeo won't be as young in 10 seconds when I tell you that's me. He's just being a bit mean to her. They're all bullying her a little bit. And then I says, you say well. You say well. Yeah, is the worst well? So he's saying, yeah, he is the worst. And if you think that's well, then yeah, he's the worst. Very well, took her faith wisely, wisely. If you be he, sir, I desire some confidence with you. So we've got our first malapropism here. She doesn't mean confidence, she means conference. So they immediately mock her and say, she will indict him to supper instead of she will invite him, because she said confidence instead of conference. They're continuing the stroke. She will indict him to supper. Aboard Soho. He's calling her the mama figure in like a place for women to be sold, basically. The mama figure in a place for women to be sold. What hast thou found? Mercutio says, no hair, sir, unless a hair, sir, in a Lenten pie. So again, Mercutio is being really, really rude to her here. That is something stale and horror to it be spent. And he sings this song. Where's my song? Here he goes. An old hair whore. Whore means grey. So grey, obviously, rabbit meat. Old grey rabbit meat. It's gone bad. An old hair whore, again that rabbit meat that's gone bad, is very good meat in Lent for this Lenten pie, which is a pie we eat for Lent, a religious holiday. But a hair that is whore, so a hair, an actual rabbit that's that colour, is too much for a score. It's not even worth paying for. When it whores, it be spent. So basically, when it goes that colour, it's had the best days, it's not good anymore. So he's calling her this old, horrible woman who's had her day and now has no purpose. So the boys together, Romeo and Mercutio, they're all just really, really sexist and horrible. And, it's only last scene where Romeo was being so sweet and instantly juxtaposed to this side of him. Romeo, will you come to your father's? Will to dinner thither? So are you going to your dad's for dinner tonight? That's where we're going. He says, I will follow you. Farewell, ancient lady. Farewell, lady. So again, he's just calling her super old and he's bullying her. Then we get to the nurse. I pray you, sir, what a saucy merchant. What disrespectful bloke. Was this that was so full of his ropery? So he was full of dirty jokes. Now, for the nurse to say that, who's already this bawdy character, just goes to show that Mercutio is really, really disgusting. Romeo says, a gentleman nurse that loves to hear himself talk and will speak more in a minute than he will stand to in a month. So he just loves the sound of his own voice and he'll talk more in a minute than the work he'll do in a whole month. And she says, if he speaks against me, I'll take him down. If he were lustier than he is, and 20 such, so if he was even more aggressive and dirty than he already is, and there were 20 of him and 20 such jacks, I'd still take him on. And if I couldn't, and if I cannot, I'll find those that shout. So if I can't do it myself, I'll get other people to take him on and beat him up. Scurvy knave. I am none of his flirt gills, so I'm not one of his loose girls that he can talk to like that. I am none of his skeins, mate, so I'm not one of his cutthroat pals, one of his gangster friends. She says to Peter, the one she's with, and thou must stand by too, and suffer every knave to use me at his pleasure. So you did nothing, mate. You just stood there and let him laugh at me. Peter says, I saw no man use you at his pleasure. If I had, my weapon should quickly have been out, I warrant you. I dare drew as soon as another man if I see occasion in good quarrel, and the law on my side. So I swear, I didn't see him mug you off. If I did see him mug you off, I would have come in and got my weapon out and I would have backed you up, I swear. If I'm always the first one to get in a fight, if there's a good reason and the police are on my side, the law's on my side. So that's not true. Peter did nothing. He's a coward, and he, after the fact, he's like, "No, I just didn't hear anything. But if I did, I'd have backed you up." And she says, "Now, afore God, I am so vexed that every part of me quivers, scurvy enough. So I'm so angry right now. I'm shaking. Pray you, sir, a word as I told you. My young lady bade me to inquire you out, so I've got to have a word with you. My young lady, obviously Juliet, has asked me to seek you. What she bade me to say I'll keep to myself. But first let me tell you, if you should lead her into a fool's paradise, as they say, it were a very gross kind of behaviour, as they say. For the gentlewoman is kind, and therefore if you should deal double her with her, truly it were an ill thing to be offered to any gentlewoman, and a very weak dealing." So basically, what she's saying here is, I'll tell you what she's asked me to tell you, but first, don't don't break her heart. Don't be tricking her. Don't be mugging her off. If you're not serious, if you're making false promises, what you're doing is really, really bad. She's very young, and therefore, if you're trying to trick her, it's not cool. And he's saying, "No, commend me to thy lady and mistress. I protest unto thee." So he's saying, "No, speak well of me. Tell her good things, I promise. Good heart, faith, I will tell her has much. Lord, she will be a joyful woman." So I'll tell her that you're good. I'll tell her that you've made this promise, and she'll be really happy. "What wilt thou tell her, nurse? Thou dost not mark me, so you're not listening to me. What are you going to tell her?" "I will tell her, sir, that you do protest, which, as I take it, is a gentlemanlike offer." We've got our other example of a malapropism here. She doesn't mean protest, she means propose. I will tell her that you do propose, which is, I take it, is a gentlemanlike offer. Bid her devise. Sorry, I've lost my place in the book now. Bid her devise, so ask her to find some means to come to shrift this afternoon. So ask her to find some way to come to a confession. So I don't know if you've ever seen it on the movies where they go in and they confess to the priest or the friar or the pastor or whatever. "And there she shall at Friar Lawrence's cell." So she'll go to Friar Lawrence's place and be shivered and married. Be shrived and married. So this shrift and shriving is confession. So she'll give her confession, but she'll be married because that's the real reason she's going. "Here is for thy pains," and he tries to give her money. "No, truly, sir, not a penny. Go to, I say you shall." "This afternoon, sir? Well, she shall be there. And stay, good nurse, behind the abbey walls await. Go behind the church wall. Within this hour my man shall be with thee." So within the hour, my man's going to come, my servant's going to come and be with you. He'll come to you. "And bring thee cords made like a tackled stair." So he's going to bring a rope ladder, "which to the high top gallant of my joy must be my convoy in the secret night." So this is going to be my staircase that I can use in order to climb to Juliet. "Farewell, be trusty, and I'll quit thy pains. Farewell, commend me to thy mistress." So farewell, be trustworthy, and I'll reward you. Make sure you say nice things to Juliet about me. And she says, "Now God in heaven bless thee. Hark you, sir. So listen to me. What sayest thou, my dear nurse? Is your man secret? Did you never hear that say, two may keep counsel, putting one away?" So what she's saying there is two can ruin the plan of one. "I warrant thee my man's as true as steel." Trust me here. "Well, sir, my mistress is the sweetest lady, Lord, when 'twas a little prating thing, there is a nobleman in town, one Paris, that would fain lay knife abroad." So my mistress is so sweet, but there's this nobleman in town, Paris, and he really wants her as well. But she, good soul, had as lief see a toad, a very toad as I see him. So She's saying she'd rather be with a toad. She'd rather look at a toad than she would look at Paris. I anger her sometimes and tell her that Paris is the properer man. So I joke and make her a bit angry sometimes when I tell her Paris is more handsome than you. But I'll warrant you, when I say so, she looks as pale as any clout in the versal world. So she looks as pale as a sheet in the whole world. Doth not Rosemary and Romeo begin with a letter? I suppose. Oh, there you go. So doth not Rosemary and Romeo begin with a letter? Now, rosemary, the herb, is a symbol for the dead and remembering the loved ones that have passed away. So Rosemary and R begin with the same letter. That's what she's saying. Now, again, it symbolises in Elizabethan England, it symbolised remembering the dead. Here's actually a quote from Hamlet. There's Rosemary, that's from Remembrance. And I like this as well because, again, it's foreshadowing and it develops the theme of fate, because we obviously know that Romeo dies. We're saying that Rosemary symbolises remembering the dead. And she's saying Romeo and Rosemary both begin with a letter. I nurse, what of that? Both with an R. This is really not as funny. I'm going to find this funnier than you do. So he says, no, yeah, what of it? They both begin with the letter R. He's like, you joker. That's the dog's name. R, like a barking noise. So he's saying they begin with the letter R, and she goes like a, she's like, that's the dog's name. R is for the, oh no, it begins with some other letter, and she hath the prettiest sententious of it, of you and Rosemary, that it would do you good to hear it. So basically, she's got this kind of comparison that she's made, and she wants Romeo to hear it. Again, another malapropism here where she means sentence and not sententious. I nurse, what of that, both with an R. I mock at the R, we've already done this. Commend thee to thy lady, I 1,000 times. Romeo exits, and then Peter and the nurse both exit. That's it, that's the scene. So what you've got to do is analyse a few devices, because it is a really long, kind of boring scene with a lot of stuff that's not really happening. And I do apologise for how long the video was. But if you've got any questions, please do ask me. Thank you.